The gala was supposed to be perfect. Crystal chandeliers glittered above the ballroom, their light dancing off champagne flutes and diamond necklaces. Every influential figure in the city was there: politicians, tycoons, heirs and heiresses, all orbiting around one man, Adrian Blackwell, the untouchable CEO who built empires with a glance and destroyed rivals with a single word. But power meant nothing when his body betrayed him. At first it was subtle, a flicker in his eyes as he raised his glass. His fingers trembled when he set it down. Then, in the middle of his toast, his voice cut off. His body swayed. The glass shattered on marble. Gasps rippled through the room. Adrian Blackwell, the man who never faltered, collapsed at the center of his empire. "Call a doctor," someone screamed. "Get the ambulance, hurry." Men in suits rushed forward. Women clutched their pearls. Phones flashed in every direction. But amidst the chaos, no one dared to touch him. He was too important, too untouchable. Even as his lips turned pale, even as his breaths grew shallow. Outside, on the steps of the hotel, Maya tightened her grip on her ragged backpack. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. The warmth from inside tempted her, but she wasn't foolish enough to walk into a world where she didn't belong. Not when her floral dress was faded, her shoes barely held together. But fate didn't ask permission. The doors burst open. Panic spilled into the night air. "The CEO, he's dying," someone shouted. Maya's heart skipped. She edged closer, curiosity pulling her like a magnet. Through the wide doors she saw him, stretched out on the floor, motionless. His security guards barked orders, paramedics arrived too late, and the crowd's cries turned desperate. "We need blood, type O negative," a medic shouted. "He's lost too much. We can't stabilize him without it." A cold silence followed. Wealthy guests looked at one another, horrified. Nobody spoke up. Nobody moved. Maya's pulse thundered in her ears. She swallowed hard, then whispered, "I'm O negative." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Heads turned. The guards glared at her like she was dirt on their shoes. "Step back," one snapped. "This isn't your place." But the medic's eyes lit up with urgency. "No, wait. We don't have time. If she's a match." "She's a street rat," another guest sneered. "You can't seriously." "I don't care if she's from the gutter," the medic barked. "If she can save him, we use her." Maya froze. Every instinct screamed at her to run. This wasn't her world. She was invisible, unwanted. And yet, something about the sight of him, this powerful man, reduced to fragile flesh and blood, made her chest ache. Before fear could chain her, she dropped her backpack and stepped forward. "Take my blood." Minutes later, she was in a side room. The medics worked with rapid hands, connecting tubes, drawing crimson life from her veins into his. Adrian lay unconscious on the stretcher, his face ghostly pale, his lips tinged blue. Her hand trembled as she watched her blood flow into him. The contrast was surreal. Her, a nobody with nothing, keeping alive the man everyone else worshipped but couldn't save. "Vitals stabilizing," one medic announced. Relief washed through the room like a tide. But Maya couldn't look away from him. Even unconscious, he carried an aura of power. Sharp cheekbones, dark lashes against his skin, jaw tense as though even in sleep he was still fighting battles. She hated herself for noticing, for caring. When his chest rose with a stronger breath, her eyes burned. And then, his fingers twitched. His head turned slightly. For the briefest moment, his eyes flickered open. Dark, stormy, disoriented. But they locked on her. It was impossible. He shouldn't even be conscious, but his gaze pierced her like a blade. Maya's breath caught. And then his lips moved, barely a whisper, but she heard it. "You." Her heart slammed in her chest. The monitors beeped louder. Nurses shouted instructions. But all Maya could think of was that one word. "You," he said, like she wasn't just a stranger, not just a girl off the streets, but the only person in the world who mattered at that moment. The weight of that gaze burned into her soul. Right before his eyes slid shut again, Maya's arm ached, her body weak, but she didn't move. She stared at him, shaken, terrified, and something else she couldn't name. She had no idea what her blood had done. She had no idea what she had just awakened. The hospital corridors smelled of antiseptic and power. Not the ordinary kind, the kind that dripped from every polished shoe, every tailored suit pacing outside the ICU. Reporters swarmed the entrance, cameras flashing, desperate for updates on Adrian Blackwell's condition. Inside, chaos ruled. Who authorized this? A sharp female voice cut through the noise. A woman in a pristine white dress stormed toward Maya, her heels clacking like gunfire. She was beautiful, elegant, the kind of woman who had never known hunger a day in her life. Who let her near him? Maya shrank back instinctively, her arms still bandaged where the needle had drawn her blood. She had been shoved into a corner of the waiting room, invisible again, until those words dragged every pair of eyes toward her. She contaminated him with street blood. The woman spat, as if Maya were nothing more than filth. Enough, Ms. Voss, one of the doctors snapped, but his voice wavered. The woman was no ordinary guest. She was the board chair's daughter, Adrian's rumored fiancé. Her words carried weight. Maya's chest tightened. Her hands balled into fists. She wanted to disappear, but another part of her, burning hot and wild, refused to bow. Her voice came out steady. Street blood? She stepped forward, her bare shoes squeaking on the polished floor. That street blood is the reason your perfect CEO is still breathing. The room went silent. Ms. Voss blinked, stunned by the audacity. How dare you? I didn't dare. Maya cut her off. Her voice trembled, but she didn't stop. I did what none of you could. You all stood there, clutching your pearls, too scared to move while he was dying. If it wasn't for me, he'd be a cold body right now. A ripple of shock moved through the staff. The medics exchanged glances. Even the security guards shifted uncomfortably. Ms. Voss's face darkened. You think saving his life gives you the right to speak to me like that? You're nothing. You don't belong here. Maya's throat ached with unshed tears, but her chin lifted higher. Then maybe it takes a nothing to remind you what life is worth. For a moment, nobody spoke. The hum of the machines down the hall filled the air. And then, enough. The word was faint, hoarse, but it cut through the tension like a blade. All heads turned. From the ICU doorway, a nurse appeared, pushing it open just wide enough for a weak but commanding voice to slip out. Adrian Blackwell. He was awake. Maya's breath caught. She hadn't expected to see him conscious so soon. His eyes, stormy and sharp despite his pale skin, found hers instantly. That gaze pinned her in place, as if the rest of the room vanished. You stay, he rasped. His voice was gravel, but his authority was undeniable. He looked past Ms. Voss without hesitation. She doesn't leave. Gasps echoed. Ms. Voss's face drained of color. Adrian, She saved me, he interrupted, his eyes never leaving Maya's. If she goes, I go. The declaration stunned the room. Even the doctors froze, uncertain whether to intervene. Maya's knees threatened to give out. She wanted to argue, to say she didn't belong, but his stare anchored her. For the first time in years, someone powerful looked at her not with disgust, not with pity, but with recognition. Ms. Voss's lips pressed into a thin line. She stormed out, heels snapping like a warning shot. The rest of the room buzzed with whispers, but Adrian only lifted a trembling hand, gesturing for Maya. Her body moved before her brain could catch up. She slipped past the murmuring crowd into the ICU, the door closing behind her with a heavy click. The room was quieter here. Machines beeped steadily. Adrian lay on crisp white sheets, tubes still tethering him to life, but his eyes were alive. You shouldn't, Maya whispered, her voice cracking. You shouldn't ask me to stay. I'm no one. He managed the faintest smile, a ghost of his usual iron mask. Then you're the only one I can trust. The words shattered something inside her. No one had ever said that to her, not her parents, not the strangers who walked past her on the streets, not the world that labeled her invisible. Her throat closed. Why me? Because, Adrian murmured, his gaze never wavering. Everyone else failed. Maya's heart thundered. She wanted to argue, to deny it, but she couldn't. Not when his truth pressed against her so raw, so undeniable. The monitors beeped steadily, a fragile symphony keeping him tethered to life. And just as her lips parted to respond, the door burst open again. This time it wasn't Ms. Voss. It was one of Adrian's senior board members, face pale, voice urgent. "Mr. Blackwell," he said breathlessly. "There's been a breach. Someone leaked your condition to the press. Reporters are swarming the building. The company stock is plummeting." Adrian's jaw tightened, his fragile chest heaving with effort. His eyes flicked to Maya, then back to the board member. "Then let them see," he said coldly. "Let the world know. I owe my life to her." Maya's heart stopped. And with those words, her anonymity, her fragile invisibility, shattered forever. The city roared with headlines by morning. Untouchable CEO saved by mystery girl. Who is Adrian Blackwell's unknown angel? From rags to CEO's lifeline, the girl who stopped death. Every news channel, every gossip site, every glowing billboard on Times Square screamed her existence into the world. And Maya hated it. She pulled the hood of her frayed sweatshirt tighter as she sat on a park bench outside the hospital. Cameras swarmed the front gates. She couldn't go back to the shelter now. Reporters had already cornered the place. Strangers had chased her all night, trying to get a picture and name. She wasn't built for this. She wasn't built for him. Her stomach growled, but she ignored it. Survival was something she understood. Fame wasn't. Inside the hospital's top floor, however, Adrian Blackwell refused to rest. He leaned against the pillows, pale but sharp-eyed, and force still tethered to his arm. The board pleaded with him to sign documents, to reassure investors, but his attention kept slipping back to the same thought. Her. Maya. The girl with fire in her voice, who had stood up to Vivian Voss like no one else dared. The girl who had given blood without hesitation when the richest in the room had stood paralyzed. The girl who had looked at him not with greed, not with fear, just raw truth. And now she was gone. "Sir, the PR team is suggesting we spin the story," his assistant murmured, shuffling papers. "We can downplay her role, protect the company's image. Say you were stabilized by—" "Don't," Adrian cut him off, voice low and dangerous. "Don't erase her." The assistant blinked. "But she's homeless. The press." Adrian's eyes narrowed, and the man shut up instantly. The truth was, Adrian didn't understand it himself. Why her? Why did the thought of her disappearing into the streets unsettle him more than losing a billion-dollar deal? He shoved the sheets aside. "Get me clothes. I'm leaving." Maya didn't expect to see him again. She certainly didn't expect a convoy of black cars to pull up along the park curb, security spilling out like shadows. Her chest froze. She gripped her backpack, ready to run, until he stepped out. Adrian Blackwell. No hospital gown now, but a crisp charcoal suit, every line of him screaming power despite the paleness of his face. His presence was magnetic, terrifying, impossible to ignore. Maya. Her name rolled off his tongue like he had said it 1,000 times. She stood. "You shouldn't be out here. You disappeared." His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with something that made her stomach knot. "After saving my life, you vanish like a ghost. Why?" She laughed bitterly. "Why? Because I don't belong in your world, Mr. Blackwell. I don't want your reporters, your headlines, your—" "My life," he finished quietly. Her throat tightened. She couldn't answer. "I owe you everything," Adrian said, stepping closer. His gaze searched her face, as if memorizing every detail. "You gave me what no one else could. Do you think I'll just let you walk away?" Her hands trembled. "I don't want anything from you." But her voice cracked, betraying the storm inside her. A silence stretched, heavy and charged. Then, from behind Adrian, Vivian Voss emerged from one of the cars, her eyes cold as winter. "Adrian," she said smoothly, ignoring Maya. "The board is waiting. Investors are panicking. You can't waste time with—" Her eyes flicked to Maya, dripping disdain. Charity cases. The words sliced deep. Maya's instinct screamed at her to leave, to protect the fragile piece of dignity she had left. But Adrian's jaw hardened. He turned, not toward Vivian but toward Maya. "She is not charity," he said, voice sharp as glass. "She is the reason I stand here. Don't forget that." Vivian froze, humiliated. Rage flickered behind her perfect smile. Maya, however, felt her heart pound wildly. His defense that stirred something she didn't want stirred. Her world was already unraveling, and he was pulling her deeper into the storm. As the convoy rolled away, the reporters swarmed closer. Flashbulbs lit the air, voices shouted questions. "Who is she? Are you two together? Is she the new fiancé?" Maya panicked. She tried to slip away, but Adrian's hand caught hers, firm and unyielding. His touch sent a shock through her, heat and weight all at once. He leaned close, his words only for her. "You saved me once," he murmured. "Don't think you can disappear before I repay the debt." Her chest ached. She should pull away. She should run. But she didn't. And that terrified her more than anything. The silence in Adrian Blackwell's penthouse was suffocating. Not the comfortable silence of two people sharing space, but the kind that hummed with unspoken questions and secrets threatening to explode. Lila sat stiffly on the edge of the velvet couch, her hands clenched so tightly in her lap that her knuckles whitened. She still wore the thin hospital sweater they'd given her, frayed at the cuffs, a reminder that she didn't belong here, in a place dripping with marble, gold, and power. Adrian's eyes never left her. The man who had been declared clinically dead 48 hours ago stood tall in front of her now, dark shirt unbuttoned at the throat, chest still taped from the surgery. His presence was overwhelming, like a storm in human form. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice shaking. I shouldn't be here." Adrian stepped closer, his tone sharp. "You gave your blood when no one else could. You walked into that hospital nameless, homeless, and you saved me. Why?" Her breath caught. The truth was messy, embarrassing. She had almost run away when the doctors begged for a rare match, terrified of needles, terrified of being seen. But something about the sight of his lifeless body on that bed, this untouchable titan brought low, had ignited something in her. Compassion, maybe, or fate. Because she looked up at him, eyes glistening. Because nobody else would. Adrian's jaw tightened, like her answer both infuriated and intrigued him. He turned away, staring out at the city's skyline glittering beyond the glass wall. "Everyone failed me," he said bitterly. "Doctors, board members, so-called family. They gave up. Yet you, someone who is nothing, chose to bleed for me." Lila's heart hammered. The rawness in his voice startled her. For all his wealth and power, he sounded abandoned. And then, his next words shattered the fragile calm. "I had you investigated." Her head snapped up. "What?" Adrian turned, eyes like blades. "You think I'd let a stranger's blood run through my veins without knowing who she is? You're not just a random homeless girl, are you?" Her stomach dropped. Fear rushed through her veins. She had secrets, ones she'd buried deep, ones that could destroy her if uncovered. What did you find?" she forced out, voice trembling. Adrian stepped closer, his gaze searing into her. "That you vanished 3 years ago. That before the streets, you had a life, a name. Lila Hart, daughter of a man who died in my company's scandal." Lila's world tilted. Her breath left her in a strangled gasp. "No. Yes." His voice was ice. "The world thought you disappeared, that you were swallowed by grief. And now you're here, tied to me by blood." Her eyes burned with tears. Images flashed. Her father's downfall, the headlines branding him a traitor, the night she lost everything. "You think I didn't recognize your eyes?" Adrian's tone dropped, husky, almost vulnerable. "The moment you leaned over me in that hospital bed, I knew I'd seen them before. I just didn't know where. Until now." Lila staggered back a step, her chest heaving. "So, what now? You're going to throw me out? Destroy me, the way your company destroyed my father?" The silence between them was electric, crackling with betrayal and grief. Adrian's hand twitched at his side, like he wanted to reach for her, but didn't dare. His voice softened, almost a whisper. You saved my life when you had every reason to let me die. Tears spilled over her lashes. I should have. The words cut through him like knives. For the first time, Adrian Blackwell, CEO, untouchable, feared by rivals, looked shaken, human. But before either of them could speak again, his phone buzzed sharply on the glass table. Adrian snatched it up. Sir, his head of security's voice crackled through. We have a problem. Someone leaked your condition to the press. They're calling it a miracle recovery, but they want to know who saved you. Adrian's gaze darted to Lila, his jaw tightening. She froze under his stare, realization sinking in. The world would know. The vultures would come. And her secret, the past she'd fought to bury, would be dragged into the light. Adrian ended the call, his face carved from stone. You need to decide, Lila, he said slowly, dangerously. Are you going to run again? Or are you going to stay and face the fire with me? Her pulse thundered in her ears. Stay? With him? This man whose world had destroyed hers? And yet, for reasons she couldn't explain, her chest ached at the thought of walking away. Lila rose from the couch, her legs unsteady, and whispered the words that would seal her fate. I don't run anymore. Adrian's eyes darkened, something fierce flickering in them. Admiration, anger, maybe even desire. But before he could reply, the sound of cameras flashing echoed from the street below. The paparazzi had already found them. And Lila knew. Her life would never be the same. The glass walls of Adrian Blackwell's penthouse glared with flashes of white light. Paparazzi swarmed below like a pack of wolves, their lenses aimed upward, hungry for the first glimpse of the miracle girl who had saved the city's most powerful man. Inside, the atmosphere was no less savage. Adrian's phone hadn't stopped buzzing, calls from board members, journalists, even rival CEOs pretending to check in. His empire, his very image, balanced on a razor's edge. And at the center of the storm sat Lila, her hands trembling in her lap, as if she could still feel every eye of the world piercing through the glass. You have to send me away, she said, her voice breaking the silence like a gunshot. Adrian's head snapped toward her, his expression darkening. No. You don't understand, she pressed, standing now, her chest heaving. Once they know my name, once they connect me to my father, they'll tear me apart. They'll tear you apart for letting me near you. His jaw clenched, veins taut at his temple. Let them try. Lila shook her head, desperation spilling from her eyes. You don't get it. They think my father was a traitor. They think he ruined lives. If they know his daughter's blood is inside you, they'll twist it. They'll call it poison, a curse. They'll say you're unfit to lead. For a moment, the words hung heavy, undeniable. Adrian crossed the room in 2 strides, towering over her, his voice a dangerous growl. And, what if I don't care? She froze. His hand hovered near her arm, trembling with the effort to control himself. What if I care more about the woman who refused to let me die, even when she should have hated me? His voice cracked then, raw and unguarded. What if I care more about you than my empire? Lila's heart twisted painfully. She wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that this cold, unreachable man could mean it. But she'd seen the world's cruelty before. She'd lived it. They'll destroy me, she whispered. They'll have to go through me first. His words were steel, but his eyes betrayed something else. Fear. Not for himself, for her. Before she could answer, the sharp chime of the penthouse elevator cut through the room. The doors slid open, and Adrian's chief of staff stormed out, flanked by 2 board members in tailored suits. Adrian, this is madness, one of them snapped, ignoring Lila as though she were air. You cannot be seen with her. The other's tone dripped venom. Do you have any idea what this looks like? The savior of Blackwell Corp turns out to be the disgraced daughter of the man who nearly bankrupted us. The press will eat this alive. Lila flinched at the words, shame burning her skin. She wanted to shrink, to vanish, but Adrian stepped in front of her, his presence a shield. "Watch your mouth," he said coldly. "This isn't about respect," the first man barked. "It's about survival. If she stays, we lose the shareholders, the contracts, the company. Everything you bled for." Adrian's fists clenched at his sides. Lila could feel the storm inside him, the war between empire and emotion. Her own voice broke into the chaos, trembling but clear. "They're right." Adrian turned on her, his eyes wide with disbelief. Lila swallowed hard, forcing the words out like knives. "You can't lose everything because of me. I won't let you." "Lila." "No." Her voice cracked like thunder. "You were given a second chance at life. You can't throw it away for someone like me. I saved your life so you could live it, not burn it down." The silence that followed was unbearable. Adrian stared at her as if she'd just struck him across the face. Then slowly, he stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "Don't you understand? You didn't just save my life. You became my life." Lila's breath caught, her entire body trembling. But the board members moved in, seizing the moment. "This ends now," one of them hissed. "She walks out of this building tonight, or we walk, and take the company with us." The ultimatum fell like a guillotine. Adrian's shoulders stiffened. For the first time since his recovery, he looked cornered. Lila's throat ached as she forced herself to step away from him. Her eyes glistened, but her voice was steady. "Then let me go, Adrian. For once in your life, choose what's best for you." The words gutted him. He reached out instinctively, fingers brushing her wrist, but she pulled back like his touch burned. She turned toward the elevator, each step heavier than the last, her heart splintering with every movement. The board members smirked in satisfaction as the doors closed behind her. Adrian stood frozen, rage and grief warring in his chest, until finally he roared, slamming his fist against the glass wall, shattering it into 1,000 glittering shards. From the street below, the paparazzi caught the image. The mighty so broken, the miracle girl gone. And for the first time in his life, Adrian Blackwell looked powerless. The rain came down in sheets, drumming against the city like a war march. Lila clutched her thin jacket tighter, each step echoing on the wet pavement as she fled into the night. Her heart was splintered glass, each beat cutting deeper. She told herself she was doing the right thing, for him, for his empire. But the truth was simple and cruel. She had just ripped her own soul apart. Behind her, miles away in his glass fortress, Adrian Blackwell was unraveling. The penthouse floors still glittered with shattered glass, but it was nothing compared to the shards inside his chest. His empire, his legacy, his board, none of it mattered. Not when she was gone. And then his phone lit up. A headline blazed across the screen. "Homeless girl who saved CEO exposed. Daughter of disgraced traitor." Underneath, a grainy photo, Lila, drenched in rain, her eyes hollow with pain. The wolves had found her. Adrian's blood turned to fire. He didn't think. He didn't plan. He moved. The streets were chaos when his black car skidded to a halt, tires hissing against the wet asphalt. Cameras flashed, voices screamed, a mob swarming around a single fragile figure. Lila stood frozen in the storm, reporters shoving microphones in her face. "Are you here to seduce the CEO for revenge? Do you admit your father was guilty? Is your blood a curse on Adrian Blackwell's life?" The cruelty hit her like physical blows. Her lips parted, trembling, but no words came. Her throat was raw with unshed tears. She was drowning, until the crowd suddenly split in two. Adrian Blackwell, tall, furious, rain soaking through his suit as he pushed past the mob like a storm made flesh. His eyes were locked on her, burning with something no scandal could kill. Without hesitation, he tore the microphones away, his voice booming like thunder. "Enough." The reporters froze. Even the rain seemed to hold its breath. Adrian stepped in front of Lila, shielding her with his body. His hand reached back, finding hers, gripping it tight. "You want your story?" he roared at the cameras. "Here it is." He pulled Lila forward until she stood beside him, trembling but unbroken. "This woman," he said, voice cutting through the storm, "gave me her blood when no one else could save me. She risked her life for mine. Without her, I would be dead. And you dare call her a curse?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. He tightened his hold on her hand, his voice breaking with raw truth. "She is not a curse. She is the reason I'm standing here. She is my savior. She is." He turned, looking at her with eyes that held the weight of everything. "My heart." The words silenced the mob. Lila's breath hitched, her knees weak. She shook her head, whispering, "Adrian, you'll lose everything." But he only smiled, a rare, devastating smile that lit even the storm. "Then let it burn. I'd rather lose an empire than lose you." The cameras flashed wildly, the scandal rewriting itself in real time. Not a curse. Not a traitor's daughter. A miracle. The woman who saved the untouchable CEO and stole him. The reporters shouted questions, but Adrian ignored them, his hand cradling Lila's face as if she were the only soul in the world. Rain dripped from his lashes, his forehead pressed to hers. "I told you," he whispered fiercely. "You're my life now, and I'm never letting you go." Something inside her broke open, fear, pain, doubt, all drowned by the tidal wave of his conviction. Tears mixed with rain as she finally let herself collapse into him, into the arms of the man she had tried to leave behind. The crowd erupted, the story of the century unfolding before their eyes, but neither of them cared. For the first time since her world had fallen apart, Lila felt whole. For the first time since his resurrection, Adrian felt alive. That night, the world didn't see a CEO and a homeless girl. They saw something rarer, something stronger, love born not of power, not of wealth, but of blood, sacrifice, and unbreakable truth. And as Adrian carried her through the rain, shielding her from the cameras, from the world, Lila whispered the words she had been too afraid to say. "You were worth saving." Adrian's arms tightened around her, his answer soft but absolute. "So were you."